This episode is a dyslexia special episode, and I'm delighted to welcome my guests, the two very renowned professionals and dyslexia self advocates, Mr. Mike Jones and Ms. Tiffany James from Nessy Learning. Hi,
Hello.
Tiffany. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Welcome to Talk Inclusion.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. Mike Jones is the founder and CEO of Nessy Learning. Mike, it would be great if you tell our viewers a little more about your exceptional life and career.
Well, I have dyslexia and I struggled a great deal at school. School was a very tough place. Until I started, my mum taught me at home and she taught me how to learn. And once that happened, I didn't look back, and I went from being at the bottom to the top. And then I went on to law school, and but I decided law wasn't really the direction I wanted to take. I wanted to help other children with dyslexia. So I ended up working with my mum, who had started a dyslexia centre. And I worked there for 10 years. I retrained as a teacher, helping a specialist teacher, helping children. I became a director of the centre. And then I founded Nessy Learning, which is an online learning system which took all the amazing ideas and strategies and ways of learning, and it put it online. And now that's used in pretty much every country of the world. And it's a great way for people to, for children to learn how to read and spell in an effective way, in the way they learn.
Sure. Amazing. Thanks very much, Mike. Now, Tiffany James. Tiffany is the Director, Educational Development in Nessy Learning. Also, she is a founding member of Hyper-Inclusion, a very dear colleague of mine. Tiffany, welcome to Let's Talk Inclusion once again. Could you please tell our viewers a little more about yourself?
Well, thank you again for having us. I am the Director of Education for Nessy Learning, and I'm a passionate advocate for children. I mean, that's really the part of my life that I'm most passionate about right now. But I have a history of working with testing and with school systems. I am a certified tester. I'm a dyslexia specialist, a former reading specialist. So I've worked with schools. So I've been doing this for a long time. Years ago, prior to that, I was a teacher. I was a kindergarten teacher, kindergarten and first grade. So I've been working in education for a long time. And now at this time of our lives, we are really blessed and honored to be able to spend some of our time just advocating for children, because that's a passion to us. So in addition to running our business, we spend some of our time doing that.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. Both of you have a tremendous contribution to the field of dyslexia. Here, I would like to add that Mike's book, Dyslexia Explained, and Tiffany's book, What I Need, are must-reads for all parents and professionals of dyslexia. Since the topic of today's show is decrypting dyslexia, I will start with the basic question to the person who has written the book, Dyslexia Explained. Yes, Mike, what is dyslexia to you?
Well, dyslexia is part of who you are. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just everyone has different strengths, different weaknesses. Everyone has things they're good at and things they're not so good at. When you've got dyslexia, you're going to find it very difficult to read and write. You're going to process the speed of that you can process written work, text. It's going to be slower. You're going to be slower at writing. You're just going to find it so much harder. And it just doesn't come naturally. It's something that can make school very, very difficult, because when the education system doesn't fully understand how to teach children with dyslexia, it can crush your spirit. And it's, some people still think dyslexia is something that's shameful, but it really isn't. It can give you terrific strengths. I think, although this is not definitely founded on science, I think that I feel that dyslexia has given me other skills, like really imaginative, great ideas, and everyone's got something they're going to be good at. When you're at school, dyslexia seems like it's a curse, but once you've got away from school, you can really pursue the things that you're fantastic at. I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Now I will come to you, Tiffany. Could you tell us how dyslexia can be assessed, and when should a child be sent for screening?
Well, there's a lot of thinking behind this, and there's a difference between screening and assessment. But you can identify dyslexia in a very young child, and you can even do it informally. So a really experienced preschool or reception teacher will probably notice that something is going on with the child. And if a teacher notices that, there's a really good chance that that child is going to be dyslexic. They get it right almost all the time. And there's a lot to be said for early intervention. The best, and there's a lot of science behind this too. The best time to intervene for children is when they're 4, 5, and 6 years old. So you have to catch them early. So possibly even before a formal diagnosis is made. Now, when formal diagnosis can be made is quite different. It's regional. Some places say it has to be 8, some say 7. In the United States, it may be earlier than that. So it really depends on where you live. But the most important thing to remember is to intervene early. And you can prevent a lot of reading difficulties, which, like Mike said, they can crush the child's spirit and really hurt their self-esteem. Child's always going to be dyslexic. They'll always have those tendencies. But some of the things that they find really difficult, you can really alleviate by starting early. And then that helps them with mental health, self-esteem, confidence, and lots of other things later.
Yeah, very true, very true. In India also, the minimum age is about 7 or so, because before that children don't start reading. But yes, early intervening is the key to success. I completely agree with you.
Can I make a point here? Do you mind if I jump in and say something? Do you mind if I jump in and make a comment about what you just said?
Okay, yeah, just a minute.
Did I lose you? Sorry.
Comment is okay.
Yeah, it is that.
All right. Okay. I think most of our viewers have already watched Michael, the movie. It's a biopic of Mike Jones. The movie was screened for the Indian audience last year around this time. And then Tiffany and Mike, you had its formal launch, right? And yesterday I was looking at YouTube, and I saw that over 1.5 million views on YouTube in the last 6 months.
Yes.
So yeah, congratulations to you, Mike and Tiffany.
Thank
And congratulations to all of us who are doing dyslexia advocacy in the different parts of the world. The movie is a much needed eye opener for everybody. And what is your opinion about it, Mike?
We wanted to make the film to give a message of hope, really, because when you're at school and you're not taught in the way you learn, you can try as hard as you can, but you don't seem to get anywhere. And I know that a lot of people with dyslexia become exhausted by the reading and spelling activity because their brain is having to work so much harder. So we wanted to show that when you're taught in the way that you learn, you can succeed and you will catch up and you can do it. So it's about giving that message of hope there is a way to succeed with reading and spelling and writing. And it's all about really having the education system, teachers and parents, understand what is needed to help people with dyslexia.
Yeah, very much so. I'm sure it must have been an emotional experience for you to watch the movie, even much more than it was for all of us. The awareness about reading differences was quite poor when you were growing up in England, as we saw in the movie. How different is that now? I mean, how aware the schools and the society in your part of the world today?
Well, I think a lot of people have heard of dyslexia. Most people know about it and know that it causes difficulty with reading and writing. But very few people know how to help dyslexia. Now, this is a big problem. Teachers are being trained and leaving teacher training college without knowing how to identify or help children with dyslexia. And there are a lot of myths about how children can be helped. For instance, using colored filters is maybe helpful for people with scotopic sensitivity syndrome, but that is a rare condition that is different to dyslexia. And yet most teachers, certainly in Britain, when you say to them, oh, what are you doing to help the children with dyslexia? They will say, well, we give them colored filtered overlays or different colored paper. They're doing their best to help them, but they don't understand that's not teaching them to read and spell. It's an accommodation. And I think certainly when children are younger, they need to be taught in a structured way with explicit intensity. And at the moment, they're not getting that. So when they get a bit older, they feel depressed and sad. They've given up on themselves, and they're given accommodations to help assistive technology, which is helping them just get by, but they've missed that great opportunity. So yes, there's a lot of awareness about dyslexia, but there's also a lot of misunderstanding.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I understand that. Tiffany, what was your experience growing up in a different continent, more or less during the same time as Mike's? You grew up in the United States.
I would say that the situation in the United States is quite similar to most of the places that we hear from around the world. There is more, at least now. Yeah, when I was growing up, it was different. I had kind of some of the same difficulties that we hear about. People assumed that I was stupid. The school wouldn't let me into higher level classes because my spelling was so poor, because I was an unidentified dyslexic. And then once they gave me an IQ assessment, they realized something was happening because something was going on because I had a high IQ, but I couldn't spell. And when they tested me, that opened up doors for further opportunities. And I think that's a story that many people could tell, a similar story. But going on in the United States right now, there's some really good things happening because of parent groups are really pushing forth, like Decoding Dyslexia and this Dyslexia Initiative, pushing forth the knowledge that science of reading is important, and legislation to help with dyslexic. So the United States and Australia, in my opinion, is quite a bit ahead of the UK. And the UK is not quite there yet, but they're kind of driving it forward in some of those other places.
Yeah, I think all three of us grew up in the 80s and 90s in three different continents.
Yes.
The situation was even worse in India at that time. Dyslexia was nearly unheard of, and awareness is still very poor, very, very poor. Since Nessy is working with 192 countries around the world, what do you think the scenario is like in other parts of the world? I mean, how normal the acceptance of reading differences or for that matter, learning differences in different parts of the world? Might
Oh,
Well, you start,
well, I was going to say one of the wonderful things that we see happening, I'm just going back to these parent groups where parents are kind of banding together and using their collective voice and collective power to push through some of these barriers and really make things better for dyslexic kids. And they're working very hard on it in different places around the world. And we see a lot happening with Spain and South America. They have really active groups there called DysFam. It's a really great group, and it was started with a story similar to Mike and Pat, because it was started by a mother and her son, and so it's a very similar story. And they have started in Spain, and they gathered so many of the countries in South America, so many of the Spanish-speaking countries, and they're doing great things there. So there's some great things happening in Africa. We know because of our colleagues there. We know they're doing great work in Nigeria and Ghana and Kenya. We hear great things happening there. And of course, we know in the United States, different pockets of the United States, different states have really active groups, parent groups that are doing wonderful things. So things are starting to move, but in my opinion, they're parents that are really, really driving this.
Yeah, so I would say that the awareness of dyslexia is increasing around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But like Tiffany says, it seems to be driven by individuals, people that start organizations and parent groups that have become influential, and they're the ones that really drive the changes. So when parents can get together and you get some important professionals that can take things forward, that's when things really begin to change. And the first step is to make sure that people understand that dyslexia is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of you, and you learn differently. And the second step is to make sure that the education system understands and starts to screen early and introduce effective teaching measures really early, so that it's not left too late, because that's when children get damages their confidence, damages their self-esteem, and they give up on themselves.
True, very true. Yes, there are people who are trying their best to make changes, bring changes, but yes, we really have a long way to go.
We do.
Both of you are a dyslexia specialists. So what suggestion do you have for the education system to modify in order to include all learners with all kinds of reading or learning differences?
I know that this is something that's very difficult for teachers, especially in large classrooms, to try to meet the needs of so many different types of learners. But dyslexia is so prevalent. We say it's up to 20% of a classroom, so that's a big chunk of the classroom. And like Mike said, unfortunately, many teachers are not getting the training in university, in college, or their training programs to even know what to do. And that's terribly frustrating for teachers who go into the field because they want to help and they want to do good. And then to see that so many of these kids are just failing and falling through the cracks. So that's a real challenge, and it's one I don't know how we're going to solve until we get to the kind of the teacher training programs and start to do better about giving them the training.
I would say that every school needs to have a specialist, at least one. Someone who completely understands dyslexia and how to help children with dyslexia, that then can pass on that knowledge to the other teachers.
To the other colleagues, yes.
That's the first step. And then really to introduce low-cost or free screening at a very early age. So there are many screeners which are free, even like the Dibbles one by University of Oregon,
University of Oregon,
and Dibbles 8th. That's free. The resources are free online, and it takes just a few minutes to give, and it will identify students who are struggling. As soon as you know that they are struggling and they're falling behind, that's when you need to give them that support. Don't wait for them to fail. It's got to be straight away. And that's all the research shows. If you can get support in early on, it stops all sorts of problems happening later on, and they're able to catch up.
One thing to remember is that some people believe, or a lot of people have the misunderstanding that they think that children need to be readers before you can identify dyslexia, and that isn't true, because the things that make our brain work differently are there before reading even happens. So a lot of these screeners can be done on pre-reading skills. So they're looking at things like a phonological awareness, so the ability to manipulate sound, and they're looking at working memory and rapid naming, how quickly you can process information. So you look at that before they even know how to read, and you can predict the ones that are likely to have trouble. And if you predict it, then you give them the help right away.
But then I would also say that every teacher needs to go through a quick training course, and they'll understand what signs to look out for children with dyslexia. They'll understand that simple strategies and accommodations that can be made to help children with dyslexia get through school, and that would make a massive difference.
And then just dispelling some of those myths, like Mike said, we hear this so often from certain parts of the world, more prevalent than others. And when we ask teachers, what are you doing to support children with dyslexia? And we hear it over and over again. Oh, we're dyslexia friendly. We're a dyslexia friendly school. Oh, great. That's wonderful. What are you doing? Well, we have special fonts, and we give an overlay of paper, colored overlay. And then that's it. That's what they consider to be dyslexia intervention. And that is a myth. That is not dyslexia intervention. Intervention is actually teaching them the way language works. That's intervention.
And in India, we have provisions for accommodations, but honestly, we really do not have any provision for intervention. So that is my question. I think all the dyslexic children and young people have the right to have accommodation and intervention both, right? So what is your opinion about it? Tiffany, you are a reading specialist. So how can we help our children to provide them with some intervention?
Well, intervention, and one thing to note is if you do more intervention, you'll need less accommodation. So there'll be fewer children that need accommodations if you're actually intervening early. Much fewer. You'll get the percentage from a big chunk down to just a few. But early intervention has to be a structured literacy, explicitly taught, and there are great programs around the world for doing that. One I always suggest for parents is Barton Reading and Spelling. That's a good one that mothers can do or fathers can do themselves without having formal training. We offer our program, Nessy Reading and Spelling, which is an intervention, can be used as an intervention or a whole class teaching in structured literacy. So these are all great tools that can be used by people that are non-professionals to intervene. If they're not getting it at school, you can do it at home.
Yeah. And what about assistive technology? In India, the assistive technology for qualification purposes isn't really backed up by the education system and the qualification regulatory boards. How is it in your country or, for that matter, other countries?
I guess it depends on what is defined under the governmental rules as assistive technology. Because so what we offer, Nessy, is not assistive technology. It's a teaching tool. Right. So, but then you'll have other things that are assistive technology, and that would be maybe audiobooks, screen readers, and those sorts of things. Those are a tool to help, and that's different than a teaching than something that is a teaching or an online screener. Those are kind of different mechanisms. But as far as the usefulness of assistive technology, it's wonderful and it can be a life saving for dyslexic children. It's important to remember, though, it is not a substitute for intervention, and we see that being used here as a substitute for intervention. So instead of teaching them to read, then they give them something that just reads it for them, instead of actually teaching them to read. And it's very possible to teach almost every child to read if you do it the right way and you start when they're young enough. So you have to start when they're 6 years old, though, not wait until they're 9 or 10 before you start trying to do that teaching. You can still teach them at 9 or 10, but it's much harder and takes much longer than if you do it when they're 6.
I would say that when children are at primary school, they're learning to read up to the age of 10, let's say. And after that, schoolwork becomes so intense that they're just reading to learn. So that's when accommodations are really important.
Mm-hmm.
So examinations are assessing a student's ability to have learned. What have they learned? You know, what's their knowledge level? And if they can't read or spell, they're not able to express that knowledge. So it's an accommodation would be something like reading the information to them, or allowing them to speak and have it written down by a scribe. That's not cheating. That's just allowing them to show their knowledge. And that's why it's so important to have those accommodations for children who have not had that intervention early on. When you've got dyslexia, you're just as smart as anyone else. It's just that you haven't been able to master reading and spelling because it's not being taught in the way you learn. So there are technology accommodations. That's when technology can be amazing to help those older students. But as Tiffany said, it should not replace the ability to read and spell. It's such a life skill. And also, it affects people's self-confidence.
It does. Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to have to rely on technology. I mean, you could say paper and pencil are technology. Before that, people would just communicate verbally, and that was a technology that was allowing people to write down. So a technology is a great way of leveling the playing field for children who haven't got those functional skills for reading and spelling. Very important for all students.
Very true, very true. And learning to read is possible, as Tiffany mentioned, and we must teach them, help children to read. And here I wanted to ask you what a parent can do to manage dyslexia and its comorbidities on their own, where no or not much professional help is available or feasible. Like in India, 40% of school-going population goes to private schools, and private schools charge a hefty fees. And now, during this pandemic situation, many people lost their jobs. Yeah. It is very difficult for many people to ask for professional help for their dyslexic learners at home. So is there any special method that can be useful to help children read irrespective of languages?
Well, it goes back to using structured literacy. And those are methods that you can learn about. You can go online and learn about. I would encourage parents to learn as much as they can about how to teach language. There really isn't there's not an easy way around it. I mean, you really do have to teach language explicitly, step by step by step. Now, there are methods out there, like some of the ones I've described to you, which were written specifically for parents or people that aren't specifically trained to do this to help their kids, and they do work really well. So again, we have no relationship with Barton reading and spelling, but it is wonderful for parents because they can teach it at home. That's a great one that really helps. And then, of course, our program is designed specifically to teach people to teach children to read and spell in a structured language way. But you just have to do it that way. There really isn't there's no quick fix or easy way to do it.
I would say the first thing parents need to do is find out as much as they can about stuff.
Yes.
So sometimes if parents have children with dyslexia, they may well have dyslexia themselves.
Yes.
So that was why we created the book Dyslexia Explained and What I Need. Those are just, you can get through them in 20 minutes. They're mostly pictures and they just explain very quickly about dyslexia. There are lots of websites. YouTube is great for videos that explain about dyslexia. So when you've got all the information, then you can decide, okay, well, am I going to start trying to teach the child myself? And it is possible. I mean, my mother did it. She was a teacher already, a maths teacher, but it is possible to do. There are free resources out there that you can use. Some of them are really, really effective for a fast track learning. Flashcards that help you learn the phonic sounds. I mean, there's something called the alphabetical principle. It's not just the letters of the alphabet you need to learn. There are 44 different sounds made and phonemes. And so once you start to amass all this information about how to break up a word into its chunks and join those chunks together, and then once you've mastered one syllable words, one beat words, you can go on to multi-syllable words. You learn the 7 different syllable types. Really, if you learn syllables, you learn all those phonic sounds, you learn how to decode, to break up the words, put them back together, sound out. Once you've mastered just those few skills, you'll be there. I mean, you can do it quite rapidly as well.
There's one of the mistakes people make is trying to teach dyslexic children to read by memorizing what the word looks like. So just holding up a flashcard and those sorts of things, and you're just spinning your wheels there, and you're really doing them a disservice. So it's difficult when people say, well, what can I do at home? You've got to do at home what Mike just described. You've got to teach them those different phonemes, how they can fit together. And once they get that, you've broken the code for them. And then they'll start to learn to read and get faster and faster. And there are lots of great things you can do after that. But you just can't miss that step, because that's the key right there, what he just said.
Yes, it starts with phonic knowledge, but you also need phonological skills, which are...
You have to come first, really.
Which are things like understanding how to discriminate and identify the different sounds, how to rhyme sounds, how to blend those sounds together. It's all about understanding how the sounds of language go together.
Okay. Someone at the bottom asked, should we celebrate dyslexia? And I mean, absolutely. Dyslexia is just a part of who I am and who Mike is. And we like everyone else, we're a mixture of strengths and weaknesses. We have things that we're really good at and things that we struggle with. And so, we celebrate who we are. I don't celebrate that I have dyslexia. I just celebrate them. It's part of who I am, and I'm proud of me.
Very much so.
It doesn't feel like celebrating when you're at school.
Right, it's because it can be really difficult.
But if you can find a way of expressing yourself, of showing off your ability, then it can all turn out well in the end.
I always recommend parents, when children are struggling terribly at school, and many dyslexic children, I mean, just millions of them, we hear these stories every single day, they're struggling terribly at school, is help the child find something outside of reading and spelling, which is so difficult for them. Help them find something that they're good at and give them time and help them explore that and really celebrate that, because that is a lot of times that's where they'll find those things that help their self-esteem, whether it's sports or art or dancing or with people, whatever it is that they love to do and they're good at. Help them find that.
What you shouldn't be doing is giving that child extra work, because more of what didn't work in the first place isn't going to work the second time.
That's something we hear from schools a lot and from parents a lot is, the child is struggling with reading, and so the teacher or the school will just pile on more, and it's not what worked the first time. So it's not, you give it 2 or 3 times of work, that's not going to help. It's just going to make it worse.
In fact, it's better to have less.
It's better to have less.
And focus on a small amount again and again with visual strategies like pictures or rhymes to help them make a mental hook to kind of focus in on a small section of related words and give them rules as well to help them work out the logic. There is a logic to it.
It's a logic to English, and you understand that logic. It's better to master 2 spelling words a week than to try to be frustrated trying to learn 20 and not master any. So much better to give them less and really teach them how to learn them.
It's going to take you longer to get there, but you will get there.
You will get there.
So, in India, 5-year-old needs to learn compulsorily at least 2 languages in school. There is no need, actually. One is English, another is the mother tongue. And once the child is in grade 3, primary 3, that time one more language adds to it. So there is actually no need. And if a child has any learning difference, a child struggles a lot.
Yes.
That causes the learning difference in that particular child. But yes, this is the system.
If you have dyslexia, you have difficulty with language, and so you're going to have difficulty with any language that you try. So, and if you can't master the number 1 language,
there is no point in 3 languages.
Yeah, wow, that's really, really difficult. In the States, I would advise children that were having parents of children that were having difficulty mastering a second language, because some states make you have 2 languages in order to finish your exams, or in university in order to finish a course. So I'd often suggest sign language, American Sign Language. And there were some universities that will accept that as the second language, and that works beautifully for dyslexic children. They often drop their second language is almost always Spanish, so they'll drop Spanish and switch over to sign language, and they can manage that and do quite well. But language is difficult for people with dyslexia.
Yeah, all of us had to learn 3 languages compulsorily when you are in school, in primary school, rather.
Yes, wow.
3 languages. That is, I don't think this is needed. This is important.
No, well, it's just not. It's not feasible, really. It's not logical, because they're struggling with their first language. It's better to master 1 language.
Yeah, true.
And then you can add something. If they master the first one, then add on something else. But,
yeah, very much so. Thank you very much, Tiffany and Mike. I know you have been taking a lot of initiative to help schools and families to promote reading, spreading awareness, and of course, motivating professionals. Before we conclude today's session, if you could tell our viewers briefly about Nessy's initiatives.
Yeah. Well, we just finished an initiative that we put up for a Dysawareness Day, or some people celebrate it as Neurodiversity Day. But we wanted to again offer our Dyslexia Awareness course for teachers for free to any teacher in the world that wanted to do it. And we've given an incredible amount of those now, and we're so pleased about that, because one more teacher that learns about dyslexia is another person that's going to touch the lives of children. And that's what we want to see happen. We want more children to have the benefit of teachers that at least have a basic understanding. It's not a course that makes them a specialist, a dyslexia specialist, but it gives them a basic understanding of dyslexia. And so that will affect their kids. And if they want to learn more, then that's a jumping off point for them to go and explore and learn more on their own if that's something they want to do. So that's an initiative that's very dear to our hearts. We have some new things happening at Nessy.
Yes, we're always designing new programs and new resources. We're creating a lot of free resources at the moment. They're going to go up on our website.
And teacher award, Dyslexia Teacher Award.
Oh yes, so that's going to be announced today. I'm waiting for Jude, my assistant, to get the last. There were a couple more voting, a couple more panelists that were sending in their votes, and they had to be in by today. So hopefully, but in the next couple of hours, we'll announce the Dyslexia Aware Teacher of the Year. We're excited about that because we had nominees from all over the world. They came from Greece and the Philippines and Africa and the United States, just all over the place. So Australia, New Zealand. So we're excited to find out. I'm excited. I don't know who it is. I don't know who the winners are. I knew who was leading because he gave me a heads up of last week. So he told me the ones that were kind of in the top spot. So we'll have a Dyslexia Aware Teacher of the Year and then a couple of runners up, and they're going to get some fabulous prizes for themselves because we want them to go and do something lovely for themselves and treat themselves. So they're going to get some dinners in their hometown or maybe some spa, and the winner is actually getting £1,000 as well. So just for themselves, and then they'll get some prizes for their schools too, so that so they can give Nessy products to the children in their school. So we're excited about that. So you'll hear soon if you're watching our social media.
Yeah, I'm also very excited about it. Keeping an eye on your Facebook page. And there is a comment for you.
Well, that would be interesting. Yes, yeah. So contact us, Kevin. I don't know Kevin. So yeah, okay.
I know Kevin.
You know Kevin. So reach out to us. You can share my details, and he can reach out.
Yeah, I will share. He's also based in England. And
okay.
I will share your details with him.
Okay. Yes.
And yes, thank you very much to both of you. And it has always been a very enriching experience speaking to you. And I remember last year we had our discussion around this time. And although Tiffany and I keep communicating, and seeing you, Mike, after a year or so, nearly a year. Thanks very much for your time and support. And before we conclude our session today, do you have any concluding suggestion for our viewers, Mike?
Well, just, I think, find out as much as you can about dyslexia. And just understand that it's nothing to be ashamed of, that you can succeed. School's going to be tough, but you'll get there in the end. And there are so many people with dyslexia who have learned the determination to succeed, found out what they're good at, and really just use that power within them that they've managed to get through school with to just do incredible things.
Wonderful.
And that can be you. You just need to rediscover that determination to find what you're good at. You can do it.
Sure. Thank you very much. Your concluding remarks, Tiffany.
Well, I'll just second what Mike said. We hear wonderful stories every day. We love to hear these stories of dyslexics who have found what they're good at, found their passion. And school was really hard for them, but they've gone on to do lovely things and do what makes them happy. We learned about a lady yesterday that's actually a physician, a doctor, who's so dyslexic and works so hard. And we hear great stories about people starting their own businesses and just doing what they love. They're electricians and they're teachers and they're doctors and they're counselors and pastors. and artists, lots of artists, and they find what they're good at and they just go for it and do what they're makes them happy.
Can I just add that if you are a child at school, you really need to find out about how you can self-advocate, how you can tell your teachers and tell the people around you what makes how to make your life bearable at school.
Yes.
You know, what can they do to help you get through? And so that's covered a lot in your book, What I Need. That's an important thing. And then for teachers, we know some teachers who have taken it on themselves to retrain themselves.
Yes, some of these that are up for this award. Yes,
and really, there are some great courses out there that which are free even, and they have studied and become experts. It's never, it's never too late to learn, and they've made it an impact in their school and their whole region.
Yes, there's some wonderful stories about that. We have a lady in I know we need to conclude, but there are a couple of groups of people doing wonderful things in Britain that I just want to call out. There's a lady named Elaine Spencer who has she's really been retraining herself, and she's made an impact on not only her school but a group of schools around her by getting this training. She got some from us, but then she went on and just started getting training on her own, and she's doing wonderful things. And then there's a group of teachers and women in Northern Ireland. There's some advocate groups and some tutors there that are doing fantastic things in Northern Ireland, and they're speaking to the government there, and they're trying to make an impact by just advocating for they moved from advocating from their own children to other people's children, and then doing just great things. Wonderful teachers in both of those places.
So nice to hear this. So nice. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Thank you very much, Mike.